Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My dear students of the course Biopharmaceutics and Pharmacokinetics 2, third year students, Ajman University. Today we will talk about metabolism. Okay? Now, before we talk about the objectives, I want you to know that the metabolism is a way to eliminate a drug from the body. Okay, so it's part of the elimination. If you remember the definition of pharmacokinetics اللي هي ايش؟ mathematical description of ADME processes. ADME processes في عنا at the end we have ايش؟ metabolism and excretion. Okay. So we talked about excretion when we discussed about the kidneys. Okay, if you remember, we talked about creatinine clearance and how we can use creatinine clearance to assess the kidney's function. Today we will talk about, as I told you, metabolism as a way to eliminate the drug. Of course, you know that this elimination will affect clearance, drug clearance. And drug clearance is very important when we talk about dosing or designing a dosage regimen. Okay, so what are the objectives? What you should be able to do? اللي هي the outcomes of this topic. You are supposed to know the different ways أو the various processes by which a drug is metabolized. Another thing, we want to know what is the effect of hepatic blood flow, fraction of the drug that is unbound, and the intrinsic clearance. Okay, on اللي هو ايش؟ hepatic clearance. يعني what affects hepatic clearance اللي هي hepatic blood flow, fraction unbound of drug, and the intrinsic clearance for the drug. Of course, I will talk about these so you will have a good understanding of hepatic clearance. Okay, metabolism is also known as biotransformation. So there is another term, اللي هو biotransformation. In this process, the drug is changed so that it becomes more polar. Okay, إذن the polarity of the drug increases. طب لما when the polarity of the drug increases, what will be the effect of that usually? One, there will be a decrease in the tubular reabsorption. Remember, here we need to go back to what we discussed previously regarding kidneys excretion, and what we said exactly, what affects the clearance by kidneys اللي هي ايش؟ glomerular filtration والsecretion والreabsorption. Reabsorption happens في tubules. Okay. Now, for the reabsorption to happen, it's very important that the drug is lipid soluble, not polar or hydrophilic. فإذا, what will happen to the metabolites? Once it gets out, it will have difficulty to get back. ويصير عندنا reabsorption, so it will not get back to the systemic circulation because it becomes إيش؟ polar. فإذا, metabolism, yes, the drug is changed now. It's no longer, most probably, it's no longer active drug. Okay. And at the same time, this facilitates drugs excretion from the kidneys, because reabsorption is hindered. Okay, so it goes out and doesn't come back. But another thing is that the transport of this polar compound after the drug has been metabolized, the transport into tissue is hindered. يعني it will have difficulty to get into the tissues. Another thing is the site of action where receptors are. Now the drug, because it has changed, it may no longer fit into the receptor site. فبالتالي شو بصير في الاكشن of the drug usually طبعا not always it will be hindered او it will be ايش it will no longer have an effect. Why? Because it doesn't fit the receptor. You know, to fit the receptor it has to have certain characteristics, certain geometry, certain shape, the molecule. طيب. Don't forget also about the blood-brain barrier. Making the drug polar will prevent the drug from entering the brain. Why? Because to enter the brain, the molecule has to be lipid soluble. فإذا this is also a protection for the brain from the injury, because you know that metabolites are usually toxic materials. Why they are toxic? Because they are polar, يعني they can be reactive. طبعا I said usually because there are exceptions when the metabolite itself is an active, and maybe we'll talk about this later. What carries out the metabolism اللي هي it happens through enzymatic catalysis. يعني the enzymes that are there in our body will catalyze and carry out the reaction in an environment where this can be enhanced. طيب, of course, we know that metabolism happens mainly in the liver, but you need to know that there are other places such as intestinal wall, kidney, skin, and blood where you have enzymes and metabolism can occur. Okay? Now, what are the metabolic reactions? We can usually classify them to two main types. We call them phase 1 and phase 2 reactions. Phase 1 and phase 2. Okay? Phase 1 reaction is also called a preparatory reaction. يعني جاي من preparation. Preparatory reaction. Because it can prepare the compound for the phase 2 reaction. Okay? إذن phase 1 is also referred to as preparatory reactions, and it includes oxidation, and this is the most common type of phase 1 reaction. But we also have reduction, and we have also hydrolysis. Okay, is an oxidation, reduction, and hydrolysis. These three processes or reactions, they are belonging to phase 1 reaction. Phase 2 reaction is referred to as conjugation. Conjugation. It's also referred to as synthetic reaction. Synthetic. Because in phase 2, conjugation, we are adding a molecule or a group to the molecule that we have. فبصير عندنا كأنه we are doing a synthesis here. Okay? طيب, the common way for metabolism is to have first phase 1 and then this followed by phase 2 metabolism. But you should know that a drug might only undergo phase 1 reaction, and a drug may only undergo phase 2 reaction. The common thing is phase 1 followed by phase 2. One of the capacity limited metabolism is conjugation. شو بنقصد في هاي? What do we mean by that? We mean that for conjugation to happen, you need to have that group or molecule in the liver in order to have this conjugation, to add the naturally occurring groups or molecules, to add them to the metabolite or to the drug. Okay? طيب, now how much is there from these molecules? Okay, طبعا there is a limit. If you have a lot of drug or a lot of metabolite that need to be conjugated, it might not have enough material in our liver, enough groups in our liver, enough molecules in our liver to conjugate with the drug or its metabolites. Okay. طبعا phase 1 reaction, oxidation, I want you to know that the main enzyme system في phase 1 reactions اللي هو cytochrome P450. cytochrome P450 بيحكوا لهم, sometimes they just give it the abbreviation CYP450. Okay, this is the main enzyme that system that is in the liver for phase 1 reaction, and mainly they carry oxidation, but they can also carry other types of reaction. Now this one is, I need you to know that it has families. Okay, for example, the most famous families in human that is involved in drug metabolism اللي هو family 1 والفاميلي 2 والفاميلي 3. okay, عشان هيك they say, for example, CYP1. okay, now these families, they have also subfamilies. okay, طبعا how do they classify them into families? طبعا that depends on genetic similarities. When genetic similarities between the enzymes, طبعا you know that enzymes are made by genes, and when there is at least 40%, يعني greater than 40% similarity, they put it in one family. okay, طيب, when there is more than 55% similarities, they put it in subfamily. مثلا, for example, A, B. And when there is more than 97% similarity في genes that are making enzymes, they put it into, or they usually are specific enzymes for specific type of reaction. For example, 1A2, for example. 1A2. okay, anyway, these are the main enzymes that carries out the phase 1 reaction, and we have examples. You can memorize some examples. You don't have to memorize these structures and how things are done. For example, oxidation can happen to phenobarbital, also known as phenobarbital. I want you to know that a drug can undergo more than one type of phase 1 reactions. Phenytoin can also undergo oxidation, chloropromazine, serotonin, and for reduction you have here nitrazepam, and for hydrolysis the famous one is aspirin. okay, but we have also the prokinamide. Phase 2 reaction, as I said previously, it's a synthetic reactions. We are adding a molecule that are naturally present in our body. okay, we are adding it to the drug molecule or the metabolite of the drug. طبعا the main type of conjugation اللي هو glucuronidation. And what happens is that you are adding glucuronidic acid, you are adding it to the drug. طبعا glucuronidation, which is the most common type of conjugation, can also happens to some endogenous natural substances such as bilirubin. طبعا bilirubin من وين جاي؟ Bilirubin comes from the destruction of red blood cells. طبعا they need to be eliminated from the body, البيلوروبين, otherwise they can affect the brain. فhow do they get eliminated؟ في حدا بيعرف؟ Do you know how? Well, this bilirubin needs to conjugate with glucuronide, and when it conjugates with glucuronide, طبعا this will cause the conjugated molecule to be excreted into bile. البايل اللي في الليفر. ومن البايل وين بروح؟ Where does it go from the bile? It goes to the intestine. Okay, and then it helps في digesting food. طبعا another thing which you need to know that conjugation results in a molecule that is more water soluble. Okay, and this will also help in the elimination of the metabolite or of the drug. فإذا في عندنا natural occurring material that undergo conjugation with glucuronide such as bilirubin and thyroxine. The drugs that are aliphatic alcohol and phenols are also conjugated with glucuronide. في عندنا examples اللي هو morphine. Okay. Acylation. طبعا this is كexample for drugs that undergo acylations اللي هي مجموعة the group of drugs اللي هي sulfanoamides. The most common type of acylation is adding acetyl group. Okay. Now, as you know that these enzymes are made by genes, okay, and you know that we are genetically different. That's why the enzymes that are there can differ in the quantity and activity. Okay, فمثلا we have what we call slow acetylator groups. يعني في عندنا ناس acetylation, we have people with acetylation that are slow, so they do you need to put a lot of drugs or less drug when you have slow acetylation? طبعا you need to reduce the dose in this case. وفي عندنا اللي هو الفاست acetylators اللي in this case you may need to increase the dose of the drug in order to have the effect. طيب إذا glucuronidation is one way, acylation is another one. في عندنا addition of glycine اللي هو amino acid، في عندنا sulfate، وفي عندنا طبعا other things such as اللي هو glutathione و other amino acids, methylation etc. طيب بالنسبة للجلايسين addition في عندنا النيكوتينيك acid، وبالنسبة للسولفيت addition في عندنا المورفين والباراستامول. You will see that morphine undergo sulfate conjugation and it also undergo glucuronide conjugation. طيب, as I said previously, إنه adding أو conjugation reaction or adding a molecule to the drug or its metabolite will cause the drug to be more water soluble. But occasionally, sometimes the drug becomes less water soluble. Okay, sometimes. And they had this problem with sulfonamides اللي هي antibacterial. In the beginning they used to have this problem انه السلفانومايد get precipitated في اليورين وبيسوي crystals في الكدنيز. Why? Because when the metabolite of sulfonamide containing or being conjugated with acetyl became less water soluble, فصار يصير له ايش؟ precipitation. طبعا they used to do what? Instead of using one compound in order to solve this problem, they used to use triple sulfa combination. يعني they used to use 3 different sulfonamides drugs in order to reduce the quantity of each one. طيب. So what will happen if you reduce the quantity of each one? What will happen is each one after acetylation will still be soluble, and this will prevent the formation of crystals and therefore precipitation in the urine. Okay? Type, this is in general. Now you need also to know that yes, usually the metabolites are ineffective, but in some cases the metabolite is also active. The metabolite is also active. Now, when the drug that you are using is originally not active, what you are using is not active, but its metabolite is active, is a drug not active, and the metabolite is active. In this case, we call the drug prodrug. You need to be careful about this, because, for example, if you have increased metabolism, this can cause a prodrug to be more effective. بدل ما يكون elimination تاعه its elimination is fast and less effective, لا بيكون more effective in case of prodrug when you have increased metabolism. So you have to be careful about that. طبعا examples of prodrugs, we have amitriptyline اللي هو بعطينا nortriptyline, which is a tricyclic antidepressant. We have codeine, which gives morphine as an active drug, and we have primidone, which gives phenobarbital as an active drug. Okay, I hope this is clear for you. Regarding the what can happen, okay, and when do you need to be careful? Sometimes you may have induction. Induction means increasing something that is, let's say, normal, and it's increasing. يحث يعني أو يكبر. Okay, so induction is that enzymatic activity is increased over time. Is an induction اللي هو when the enzymatic activity increases over time. طيب, why this can happen? This can happen because of two things. Either you are using a drug that can cause induction, okay, يعني this drug enhances and increases the production of more enzyme, okay, or maybe because of your habit. For example, you are smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol, and this can cause induction, يعني increasing the enzymatic activity. Now, when a drug increases its own metabolism, نحكي لها autoinduction. Autoinduction is يعني الدراج will increase its own metabolism. ومثال عليه الفينوباربيتون. Phenobarbital will increase the metabolism of itself. Additionally, it will increase the metabolism of other drugs. هنا ما بنحكي autoinduction for other drugs such as phenytoin and warfarin اللي هو anticoagulant و anticonvulsant. Cigarette smoking will increase the elimination of theophylline اللي هو بيستخدم في الأسمة. طيب, in these cases شو بتسوي في الدوزing rate؟ هل لازم do you need to reduce the dosing rate or do you need to increase the dosing rate? Which one? What do you think? Because elimination is increased by induction, then normally this means you have more elimination, then you need to increase the dosing rate to maintain effective plasma concentration. But as I said previously, you need to be very careful, because if you are talking about prodrug, then the dosing rate might need to be decreased بدل ما هو increased. Okay, decreased بدل increased في حالة prodrug. The opposite of induction اللي هو inhibition. Inhibition can happen mainly because of competitive inhibition. يعني two drugs are competing for the enzymes. Okay, so this will reduce the metabolism, صح? For example, warfarin اللي هو anticoagulant will inhibit the metabolism of tolbutamide اللي هو بيستخدم which is used in diabetes type 2 diabetes. طيب, if it inhibits the metabolism of tolbutamide معناته you will have more tolbutamide فبصير عندنا hypoglycemia عند البيشنت. إذا what do I need to do? I need to downward adjustment of the dose. يعني I need to reduce the dose of tolbutamide because إيش؟ because of less tolbutamide being cleared. Okay, is this clear? طب متى ممكن نسوي يكون عندنا inhibition ونسوي upward adjustment of dose؟ ها who can answer? When we have a prodrug. Okay, but we are going to consider a prodrug as exception and not the normal thing. طيب, now we will talk about hepatic clearance. Okay, and before we start talking about hepatic clearance, I want you to remember something. Okay, what is that? I want you to remember how طبعا when we do dosage regimen we usually ايش we want to reach اللي هو ايش we want to reach what we want to reach the steady state صح اللي هو ايش steady state CPSS. طيب, if you remember CPSS in IV infusion was equal to K0 divided by clearance اللي هو KEL في V, right? طيب, this is very important equation. هلا ال K0 is what we call, yes, it is infusion rate, but we also refer to it as dosing rate. Infusion rate أو dosing rate. Dosing rate يعني I can write it as dose على tau. This is let me remove this one. Later you will know what I mean by this. على tau. Tau اللي هو time interval. بعدين راح تعرفوا later you will know what is time interval. Time interval is the time between a dose and another. What is the time? Every 6 hours, every 8 hours, etc. طيب, dose divided by tau هي ال K0. طيب, multiplied طبعا في KEL في V اللي هو ال clearance. Don't forget that this is clearance. So K0 divided by the clearance. طيب, when I give the drug إذا أعطيت الدواء by extravascular route يعني orally مثلا, then the same equation applies, but I have to add here the bioavailable fraction اللي هو ال F. Why I have to add F? It is because not the whole dose enters the systemic circulation. Some of it might be metabolized, so not all of it will enter the systemic circulation. طيب, look at this one. Okay, you will find that this part اللي هو dose divided by KLVV is actually ال ايش ال AUC. Okay, this is the AUC. Okay, this is the AUC. طيب, هون شو علاقة the relationship between AUC and clearance. If you remember, we said that AUC is equal to ايش؟ to dose by clearance, right? And here I can add F in case I am dealing with extravascular administration. شو يعني again extravascular administration؟ يعني the drug is not administered directly into the systemic circulation or the vessels, the veins يعني. Okay? So this is what you have. Now, if I want clearance, to calculate clearance will be equal to, in this case, F في الدوز على ال AUC divided by AUC. Is that clear? Of course, if I'm dealing with intravascular, F will be 1, so I can remove it in this case. طيب, now I know certain equations, and in these equations you have clearance, okay? And we talked about the target that we want, اللي هو CPSS, and as you have seen, it's related to clearance, okay? طيب, we can write this equation also as this one here, إنه the clearance is equal to dosing rate أو infusion rate divided by CPSS. شو الدوزing rate؟ اللي هو ايش حكينا برضه؟ اللي هو الدوز على تاو، بضربها ب F in case I'm talking about extravascular administration. طيب, another thing which is also important for you to know that when you administer a drug, and you know that drugs can bound to plasma proteins. معناته I have drugs, okay, these are the drugs, and here I have plasma protein. Some of these drugs will get bound to plasma protein, and this will prevent them from ايش؟ مين بيحكي لي what will happen when they bound to plasma protein? They are not available to give an action. They are not available as long as they are bound. طبعا ما دام هم bound, they are not available to be eliminated, so they don't give an action. طيب, وهي CPSS which one? Am I talking about اللي هو non-bound ولا الbound? Which one? The CPSS that I'm talking here about is the total اللي هو ايش؟ It means the bound and the unbound. يعني عادة usually when you look at textbooks and they tell you the CPSS is so and so, or the therapeutic window is between so and so, we are talking about ايش؟ Not the free drug. This is, we call it the free drug. ولا الbound drug. We are talking about the total concentration. And this is obvious because when we take blood samples and analyze the drug, usually the analysis is not usually the analysis is not ايش؟ انه it doesn't differentiate between the free drug and the bound drug. The analysis that we carry out usually. That's why ايش؟ It talks about the whole thing. What really gives effect اللي هو حكينا ايش؟ الفري دراج. طب كيف بدي اشوف الفري دراج هون؟ I can write this one as ايش؟ وهذا هو اللي بيأثر. I can write it as CPSS equal to fraction unbound. يعني قديش how much of the concentration that is unbound multiplied في هاي. لأنه هذا التوتال. This is total. Okay? إذا هنا بدي أكتب free CPSS free هو يساوي الفراكشن unbound multiplied بالCPSS total. Okay? What will it give me? It will give me ايش؟ the CPSS free. طب شو CPSS total? It is K0 على KL في V. What is the importance of this one? This one is giving the effect. The pharmacological effect is related to the free concentration. Okay? I hope so far you understood this topic so far, because later on we will start talking about اللي هو clearance of the drug by hepatic metabolism. يعني we are going to consider that the only way to remove the drug is not excretion, but by hepatic clearance. Thank you, and wait for the next part.